Here tonight, a story that you might have missed over the weekend because it happened really late on Friday. The Second Circuit Court of Appeals at the federal level ruled that New York can enforce its vaccine mandate on healthcare workers with no religious exemption.
Now, this has been at the heart of many of the legal challenges since the mandate was announced. Lower courts had forced the state to allow those exemptions, and the health department says nearly 16,000 such exemptions have been granted statewide.
There are naturally a lot of questions about what happens now, and joining us live to help us get some answers is Melanie Franco, an attorney with Tully Rinke in Albany. Melanie, thanks so much for coming on. Good to see you.
Oh, Melanie, do we have you still?
Yes, I'm sorry. I lost one of the feeds here, but I'm still here.
Okay, no worries. We're just going to start right out, and we just need you to explain the ruling, why the judges here decided differently than the lower courts.
Of course. So we are still waiting on the written opinion, so we don't have all of their analysis just yet. But what happened was at the district level, the northern and eastern districts, a temporary injunction was originally granted, which meant that the courts could examine whether or not this vaccine mandate without the religious exemption was constitutional and did not violate any rights. At this point, the preliminary injunction, which is injunctive relief, was then denied, meaning that the courts found that there was no irreparable harm or a likelihood of success on the merits for the plaintiffs in that case. Since then, it was appealed to the Second Circuit, and they affirmed that decision, meaning they too found that there was no likelihood of success on the merits for the plaintiffs, and that banning the religious exemption was not an issue for this vaccine mandate.
Melanie, as with most cases, this ruling doesn't necessarily put an end to this. What is going to happen next in terms of appeals? I mean, is this something that could go all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court?
It could. So it has been remanded back to the district court so that the plaintiffs still have the option of arguing this at the lower court level, but they can also bring it to the Supreme Court, appealing the decision of the Second Circuit, which is probably what will happen at this point.
And if we try to read the tea leaves a little bit here, if this does get to the Supreme Court, the justices decided against blocking a similar mandate in Maine over the weekend as well. So this isn't a final ruling on the mandate itself, but does it give us any hint on how New York's challenge might fare in the Supreme Court?
It could. That decision was an examination of the law in the state of Maine. So it's not precedential in New York, but it could be persuasive. The laws are obviously different in New York than in Maine, but not significantly different. So it would have to be something very different for the Supreme Court to decide that it's okay in New York, but not in Maine.
Melanie, I know that obviously this discussion that we're having right now is specifically about this one case. There are a lot of different challenges right now across New York to various aspects of the vaccine mandates. It's kind of hard to keep track of all of them. Is there anything that we can take from, the rulings that we got on Friday and from the Supreme Court for the Maine case to apply to all of these others that are working their way through?
I think the biggest thing has to do with the religious exemption at this point. While it could still be decided that the state cannot exclude the religious exemption from this mandate, it's looking like they most likely will allow the mandate to continue. So the biggest thing at this point is that healthcare workers do need to abide by the mandate. So if they don't have a medical accommodation, they will have to get the vaccine to continue in their positions. We will need to see how those other cases play out, but it does seem like we have a good idea of what's going to happen, at least in terms of the religious exemption at this point.
It's certainly an interesting conversation, and we so appreciate the perspective. Melanie Franco is an attorney with Tully Rinke. Thanks again for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate it. That's going to do it for today's Town Hall. If you have a question or a comment, you can send us a text to 716-849-2220.
And Scott and Mary Alice are here for Channel 2 News at 6 next.